topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon, Chicago, all throughout Illinois. This is the Ask the Expert show. I'm your host, Steve-O. For about the next 50 minutes, we've got an incredible guest on. He is our top expert in the field of bankruptcy and tax relief. The first half of our show will be on bankruptcy law. So if you got a friend that's thinking about going through bankruptcy, tell them about the show. They can either watch us through the TV or they can listen to it on radio. Just tell them about our show. Doesn't actually, especially our tax relief show, it doesn't matter what part of the country they live in. So tell them about it, and they're going to get a real education. Happy Valentine's Day out there. Let me welcome our expert, our buddy, Attorney Kevin Benjamin.
Hi, Steve. How you doing?
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, listen, I love your knowledge. And our first half of the show is going to be on bankruptcy. And because we're getting so many new people every day writing us, funny how people find our show. Some of them just find it by mistake. They were going to podcasts and they saw a list of podcast shows that are appearing in Chicago, and wham, we got a new listener or viewer. So tell everybody about your practice. Let's talk about the bankruptcy side first.
Okay, basically, I'm a lawyer in Chicago, and we do a lot of bankruptcy, foreclosure issues, and as Steve mentioned, tax resolution, tax relief. The bankruptcy is more for consumers. We do corporate bankruptcy as well if you need it. We do all kinds of chapters that we'll probably get into in the next 20, 25 minutes. And it's basically debt relief and how to resolve your debt. There's different ways to do it, as we talk about. Sometimes you're eliminating it, sometimes you're restructuring it, sometimes you're doing a combination. There's different kind of chapters. Probably a lot of confusion out there on how it actually works. So we're gonna, in 20, 25 minutes, try to make it sound in English to you and tell you how we can do it.
And you also do businesses too, right?
Yeah, corporate bankruptcy, sure. Yeah, restructuring, absolutely.
Kevin, how long have you been in practice for?
About 34 years. About 1989 is when I started doing this kind of stuff. 89, 90. I've been a lawyer since 89, but I've been doing the consumer stuff pretty much from day one. So, long time.
Is it? Yeah, really. Kevin, is it different now with the way the economy is? I mean, do you see more people applying for bankruptcy now?
Well, during COVID, the last 3 years during that pandemic, the answer was no. Nobody was filing bankruptcy. People were getting money from the government. All the reasons people filed, wage garnishment, lawsuits, collection activity, foreclosures, all the activity was frozen by the government. No more court cases, collection, no more foreclosures. So there was really no reason to file, and people had money, getting the checks and probably getting paid more on unemployment than they were getting. They were getting the bonus checks, the whole thing. So people weren't filing. And then for a couple of years afterwards, they really weren't. Even as some of those pandemic related topics went away, like, people could, the forbearances went away, the collection activity started again. But then it starts to, take a while for it to kick in. People were still living on some of those checks or some of the money they'd saved by not paying anybody. But yeah, the last year or so, it's probably starting to come up last year, up a little bit this year, because the lawsuits and foreclosures and wage garnishments have started again. The IRS since January has started again. They're coming after you. We'll talk about that, the last hour of the show. So yeah, people are being garnished again, being sued again, houses again, and they're starting to file again. So yeah.
Kevin, I'm going to vent. I don't know how it is in Chicago or throughout Illinois. Our show base is out of Florida. I have never seen so many restaurants go out of business. And the reason they give is rents going up.
Yeah.
And it's so, to me, frustrating when times are bad like this, that, hey, give these people a break. Let them stay in business. This is not the time to raise rents when everything is going up. And it's just sad seeing all these restaurants.
A lot of restaurants in Chicago. Well, first of all, like the downtown area, the commercial office space around here, the Loop, the business district, it's empty. It's more empty than most of the other big cities that were coming back, like New York and some of the other have certain tech-heavy industries and people going back to the office. And now there's a lot of subleases, a lot of empty office space. They're going to take office buildings and convert them to apartments. And then, of course, some restaurants are downtown, so there's no foot traffic. There's no people coming to work, so they're having a problem. Then the restaurants outside of the business, they were having trouble with the employees, and people were raising rent, and there's everyone's got issues, So yeah, a lot of restaurants are going out of business, and other companies too, and a lot of commercial office space. But yeah, it's just like Florida.
Really sad. Well, we're talking about bankruptcy today, and not everybody's been through the bankruptcy courts. So explain to everybody, what is bankruptcy?
Well, bankruptcy is basically debt relief. Now, people think bankruptcy, they think like on the news or in the movies, and you're in the street penniless, and that's not the case. And there's different chapters of bankruptcy too. So when someone says they're filing bankruptcy, that's just a general term. What kind? What's your situation? Do you qualify? So it's basically debt relief. Most people think Chapter 7, straight bankruptcy when you're filing bankruptcy. And I'll explain how that works. There's like all kinds of chapters, like what you're not doing. Chapter 9 is for a government to file bankruptcy. Chapter 12 is for farmers. Chapter 11 is usually a corporate restructuring of debt, though an individual can do a Chapter 11 and sometimes actually has to. And then Chapter 11, there's different kinds of Chapter 11, Sub 5, small business Chapter 11, regular Chapter 11. But anyway, so generally there's cross borders, this is Chapter 15. But generally speaking, a person does a Chapter 7 or a 13. A Chapter 7 is kind of the way a corporation does a corporate restructuring of debt. It's a restructuring of a personal debt. It's simpler than a Chapter 11, less expensive. It's for an individual. Think of it more like a court-ordered bill consolidation, where you pay back your bills either in full or not in full, or some in full and some not. And we'll talk about that in a second too. Chapter 7 is like your straight bankruptcy. I'm trying to get out of debt. So usually when someone's filing bankruptcy, they're probably thinking Chapter 7. But Chapter 7, you're allowed to make money. You could have money. It's federal law, but state exemptions. Okay, so Illinois isn't the best exemption state, but like you could have a certain amount of equity in a house and still keep your house or property. Car, the same thing. There's a $4,000 wild card exemption you can use for anything. Certain cash in the bank. You can make money. You can have a job, right? And then it depends on qualifications. For example, Chapter 7, you can only get a discharge like every 8 years. So it's like, if you play golf, you get your mulligan, right? So you can do it every 8 years. It's your fresh start, right? So if you've done it less than 8 years, sometimes you have to wait or do a different chapter, right? Now, some debts aren't discharged in bankruptcy. It's usually, like for example, debt secured by fraud, child support, alimony, sometimes certain taxes, student loans, but even IRS taxes, for example, can be sometimes discharged in bankruptcy, sometimes not. So there's exceptions to these rules. This is why you have a lawyer. Then there's secured debt and unsecured debt. Secured debt, for example, you got a mortgage payment or a car payment. You have the option of keeping the car in the mortgage and just keep paying it, or giving back the security and owing nothing. So, for example, on a car, you could sometimes like they want to reaffirm when you re-obligate yourself to the debt, but you have the option of saying, you know something, the car's worth 10 grand, I owe 25,000, take the car. Well, all they get is their security, and the rest of it is then unsecured and then discharged. Same on a house. On a house, you're not going to reaffirm, but when you buy a house, for example, you sign a promissory note, you borrow, for example, $200,000 for the mortgage. That's a personal unsecured obligation. But then the mortgage is the security instrument that secures the property. If you don't pay, they could take the property. So let's say you got a $200,000 mortgage, you want to keep the house, your obligation to pay is extinguished. But people get confused. You don't get a free house. So, because if you don't pay the mortgage, they're gonna foreclose. You just won't have a deficiency or owe any money if the property's underwater. But also you can keep it and keep making the payments without the personal liability. So if down the road something goes wrong, you can get out of it. Or sometimes people just want to give the house back and walk away, and that's fine too. So that's the Chapter 7. Then there's an income qualification. They call it a means test. But there's also issues like, what kind of debt do you have? Is it consumer debt, business debt, non-consumer? Why does that matter? Because the government has this thing called a means test. So depending on your county and your state, you're allowed to make a certain amount of money, right? If you're over that, there's certain expenses you can take to get under, which is why you need a lawyer to qualify you. Otherwise, maybe you're exempt from the means test. If you have business debt, for example, more than half non-consumer debt. Maybe you got sued on a personal guarantee on a business, or you guaranteed somebody else. It wasn't for your household purposes, and that's most of your debt. You're actually exempt from the means test. You can make whatever you can make, and it's based upon your budget as long as it's a quote-unquote good faith filing. So qualifying for the 8-year rule, making sure you're not going to lose any assets that aren't exempt. What kind of debt do you have? Getting under the means test or getting exempt from the means test. Those are the reasons you have a lawyer. But basically, you're going to qualify for something. There's so many chapters.
Kevin, you don't have to hold your head down if you file for bankruptcy like you did maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Of course not. I mean, I don't even know 15, 20 years. People think things. Everyone has an issue. I'm saying it's simply debt relief. I mean, we talk about Chapter 7. It's debt relief, right? It's a mulligan every 8 years. Your credit is based upon several factors. Part of it is basically your payment history, but also your debt to income ratio. Sometimes, maybe someone just got sued for something, and maybe they had insurance, they owe $500,000. You just can't pay it, or maybe you just got over your head. And these creditors, 20, 30, 40%. I mean, come on, they're forcing you into bankruptcy, right? So sometimes these minimum payments, you're got kids and you can't meet, you got to do what you got to do. So it's a fresh start. You're not going to go to jail, right? And you're not actually barred from getting credit. That's actually not true, okay? Sometimes your credit score may go up, or eventually it may go up. There's no 10-year rule that you can't get a mortgage. You have to reestablish yourself, but that's how you're getting out of debt. As a matter of fact, let's say you wanted to rent an apartment, or even get a mortgage. The landlord probably want to see that you can't file on them again for 8 years. Let's say a car is a better example, right? You want to get a car, you file bankruptcy, they'll give it to you all day long, right? People say, well, what's my interest rate? Well, what's your interest rate if you don't file? If you don't file, you got all this debt, your credit's crap, you're being sued by everybody give me a break. You know what I'm saying? So they will give you a car, but they want to see that you're discharged. Oh, great, you can't file on them again. You want to reestablish your credit, So, and then they report to the credit bureau and you're back in business. Even a landlord, they'd rather see that you actually don't have any other bills. Who wants to say, oh, you got all these judgments and credit card bills, blah, blah, blah. How are you going to pay the rent? Oh, but they didn't file bankruptcy, so they're a good person. It's ridiculous. It's your basically your right. It's a fresh start. But also, don't forget, bankruptcy doesn't always mean Chapter 7. Maybe you're doing a Chapter 13. You're paying people back. You know what I'm saying? So what's wrong with that? It's simply a court-ordered bill consolidation with unsecured creditors getting 0%. So, you have these bill consolidation company scams on all over the place. Oh, we'll consolidate. They're full of crap. They can't do anything for you. All they do is take your money, monthly payments. All the money goes to them. They don't even try to pay some of them. Eventually, someone sues them, and you wind up filing anyway. It's a scam. They can't do crap for you, and that doesn't help your credit. Okay, you want to fix your credit. The first step to getting your credit fixed is get out of debt. Bite the bullet, put it behind you, and move forward. This consolidation crap's not going to work. Otherwise, why would you need me or somebody else, right? But a Chapter 13 is 0%, and you go 60 months, right? Or let's say you're in foreclosure. They're going to take your house. I got someone losing a house tomorrow. We filed the case 2 days ago. Foreclosure stops. The foreclosure court loses jurisdiction. They're going to make the current mortgage payments, and they're going to pay the arrears over 60 months. But the bank wouldn't tell them that in foreclosure court. They want all the money to reinstate. You don't have to do that. You could, I have clients saying, "Well, I'll borrow money." Borrow money for what? You owe 40 grand to the bank in the arrears. I use that money. Loan approved. You know what I'm saying? And there's no questions asked in in a Chapter 13, you got to show that you can actually afford to do it. You can show your budget, and I'll just catch up over 60 months. And if you could pay it sooner, you don't have to. And it's 0% on the arrears. You're paying the current mortgage, and your payment includes taxes and insurance. So you're paying that. But you're paying. It's easy. You can always pay it off faster. So now you're restructuring your debt. What's wrong? Why would someone lower their head to do a bill consolidation? But it's court ordered. Court order is the best one. You get what's called an automatic stay. You file whatever case, you get a court order. I push the button immediately. They can't garnish you, sue you, harass you, take your house, call you, send you a birthday card, nothing, right? They got to go through me or your attorney, whoever that is, right? And, now that you're in federal court, now if they do something, it's a violation, you can sue them. You get a discharge, they try to collect, and sometimes they do. You can sue them. You have rights too, right? Now you file a Chapter 13 and you're paying back certain debt. Creditors have 70 days to file what's called a proof of claim. Under penalty of perjury, here's my debt. Here's my mortgage arrears. Here's the loan transaction history report from the day of default. Show me all the garbage fees. Show me how maybe it's wrong. Now you challenge it in court. Claim objection, or if something's fraudulent, you're suing them for an adversary proceeding based upon their numbers, right? I'm not saying until someone files a claim, you won't know that. What I'm saying is they got to file that. They got to file the numbers, and you look at it. And oftentimes they're correct. Credit card, whatever. A couple bucks are off, but it's like But sometimes there's objections or issues, or debt buyers, or statute of limitations, on debt. So not all debt needs to get paid back. And then if someone doesn't file a claim, let's say your medical bill, whatever, you list them, they don't file the claim, they don't get paid. And you get a Chapter 13 discharge instead of a Chapter 7 discharge, and they're done forever. And on a mortgage situation, you come out of Chapter 13, your mortgage by court order is reinstated. You're done. So basically, you have the automatic stay. You take charge. You're the boss. There's no mother may I. People say, well, how is the creditor going to go along? They don't have a choice. All they could do is say, you can't afford it. You don't work. You're not working. How are you going to pay the?
Right.
You got to maybe show a budget that you can actually do this, right? But other than that, they can't say, I want the money faster than 60 months. They can say,
Kevin, how does somebody know when it's time to file bankruptcy?
You'd be surprised how they don't know, because people just put it off. And eventually they do it. And had they done it earlier, first of all, it's behind you earlier, right? So your credit's reestablished earlier, plus all the money you're pissing away on these monthly payments would have been in your pocket. You know what I'm saying? So usually they know when they're getting garnished or they're losing the house or, citation to discover assets or someone put a lien on, So they usually wait to the last minute. But you really should think about it as if you're in debt over your head, are there any assets that you would actually lose? That's why I talk to someone like myself. There's bankruptcy planning, there's exemption planning. You talk to a professional. Most people like myself offer a free consultation. So don't be afraid. And these days on Zoom or by phone, it's pretty common. So now, of course, if you're calling me on the phone, we're having a general conversation and you're giving me estimated numbers or stuff. Then when someone actually gives me documents, sometimes it's not exactly how they said on the phone. But that's why they have me. And I could adjust and tell them if there's issues or not and go from there. But basically, talk to a lawyer. If you can't pay this back and you're just drowning in, if you're making payments of every month, figure out what's your interest payment. Is the debt going down? People are paying $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $1,500 a month on some bills, and the debt's not going down because your interest rate is so you're just paying interest. Sometimes not even full amount of interest. You're just drowning in debt. That's what you got to consider filing. Otherwise, you got to the consolidation outside, of course, not going to work. The debt settlement BS crap on here on the internet. People call me, to settle my debt. My friend told me to settle debt. Great. What do you need me for? Well, it takes money to settle debt, right? And guess what? The creditors, they sometimes will, but suppose you have 10 creditors. If they all don't settle, and then you borrow money or you're paid on some of the creditors, the other ones are suing you, you're filing bankruptcy anyway, that money's gone. So unless they're all settling, what's the point? And and don't think you're going to say, well, just call them and tell them you're going to file a bankruptcy and they're going to settle. They don't care. They tell you don't file bankruptcy. They don't care. They take the tax write-off. They write it off.
We got a question in from a listener. When you file for bankruptcy, is it easier to get credit?
In a lot of cases, yeah. I mean, for example, because you're fixing your credit sooner. When you file bankruptcy, oftentimes your credit score surprisingly may go up. So because you have your debt to income ratio cleaned up, and you may actually go up. Otherwise, now let's say today you filed bankruptcy. So now it's behind you. Now you're moving forward. It's behind you. It's farther behind you, a little farther behind you. And now you're getting new credit. And there's ways to get positive credit on your credit report. You get a secured credit card. You could get some money, put a CD in the bank, borrow against it, and then report to the credit bureau. Car loan would report. Other places you could get some points on your to reestablish your credit. Okay, and then it's up to any different. Let's say you want to get a mortgage. It's up to the lender. Some may say, well, it's 6 months behind you, not good enough. Some may say, okay. Some may say they want 2 years behind you, 1.5 years. But also, are you reestablishing your credit? Because some people file a bankruptcy and then they just don't pay bills again. So you're not really reestablishing your credit. But let's say you want to get a car loan. It's easy. I'm saying there's all day long, people give you a car loan. So getting credit, no. As a matter of fact, you file bankruptcy, you'll be getting credit offers probably in the mail again. They want to suck you back in because you can't do it again for 8 years. So they want to be the first one to get you back into the ballgame. And the ballgame is they want you to have credit because they want. I say they, the government, because they want you to be in debt. If you don't have credit, you're not in debt. Okay, and then they want to suck all that interest out of you. And then if you can't get discharged for another 8 years, they want to be first in line to get back in there. So it's an automatic no. But it depends on how you're doing it. But it's really easier than you think. Then there's the Chapter 13. You're making payments to a court trustee. Sometimes you want to get a loan. A lot of lenders, and every lender is different, right? A lot of lenders say, well, give me the trustee reports to show those payments were made. And they may consider that as positive payments because a trustee is not reporting to the credit bureau. But oftentimes some lenders will say, well, show me you're making payments. Because at 13, you're paying something back. Why should you be penalized, right? Hey, maybe I had to pay it back because it's not as chargeable in bankruptcy. Or maybe, hey, something happened. My house was in foreclosure because I lost my job. But now I'm working, but house is foreclosure. I had to file Chapter 13. I'm making my payments. What's the problem?
Kevin, you have such a big arsenal of things that you can do for your clients. Do you ever get a client that comes in and they sit down with you for that hour, and you see they really don't need to file bankruptcy.
Do I see that? No, not really. I mean,
so the people you see
when
do
someone's
that.
calling me, they're probably, they may be call. I mean, I have people call me and you're calling a bankruptcy lawyer about bankruptcy, right? And they're like, "Well, I can't file. Why are you calling me?" It's like, so they're talking themselves out of it. But there is every once in a while, someone's calling me, because see, everyone's situation is different. You owe $5,000, $10,000. One guy owed $100,000. It's all relative to your situation, right? But I had like a couple of months, someone called. It was like, they really want me to file. It was like $5,000 or $6,000. It's not worth it, and no one's really going to sue you for that. Or you're better off making a payment. Even if someone sues you, you can do a court-ordered, judgment agreement. I'm saying about that. It wasn't worth it, because you have like your 8 years, then you're barred again. Suppose something happens, right? So sometimes, it's very, very small debt, and it's really like, what's the point? Though sometimes it's small debt and people insist, so, then you wind up doing it. But then if you do it, someone like myself, I got to report, I got to file documents with the court of what I'm charging somebody, who paid it. And if it's really a small thing, someone's going to ask me, the trustee or someone, what's going on? Why are you filing the case? So, but oftentimes, like maybe someone's retired, and they're just being hounded. Maybe they're collection proof, but who needs the stress?
Yes.
So sometimes they want to do it anyway.
I want to get this last question in before we go to our next show about credit repair. Do these companies can they really help your credit?
Depends. First of all,
that's not good.
there's laws. First of all, there's the Credit Organization Act, Credit Repair Organization Act. Like in Illinois, there's these laws that you can't get paid for credit until you actually done the credit thing, unless like as a lawyer, it's a different story, it's an exception. If you're acting like a lawyer, just being a lawyer doing credit repair, no. But you got to do it, because it's really, the proper way to do it is you're going to the creditors and to the credit reporting agencies. And under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, it's complicated, but there's ways to set up things where it has to come out, but that's a lot of work. These credit companies don't do that work. They write letters, it's not mine, it's not, it's actually fraud. Some companies tell you, oh, you put it in your own name, they don't tell them about me, it's our research has shown. They didn't research, they just don't want to know what's going on. Or if they're doing it for you, they're saying, it's not mine, it may pop off and it'll pop back on, but you're actually committing fraud when you're saying that. So, and there's some companies that have fought back and sued people for making these kind of claims. So there's nothing a credit repair company can do that you can't do yourself, right? Now, if you actually need a credit repair attorney who actually does it like a lawyer, that could help, but it's not going to be cheap. These companies give you there's a gold, silver, bronze plan per month. What does that mean? It's like, so you pay me this, I do more work. You pay me this, I do half the work. I mean, it's a bunch of crap. I'm saying. So no, they can't even. And they charge you, and they try to get around the state laws by saying, oh, the fees for this, but it's not. It's crap. So I would say no. Can they do it? If they do it the proper way and not get paid until you're doing it, but then how someone running a business where they're getting paid later? Saying so. They can't really do it. Can it work? Yeah, I mean, but could work. But can they? Are they doing anything you can't do yourself? No. I mean, even like that. Some of those national credit ones, Lexington Law. I mean, Google them. Lexington Law. They went down. Took them years. I can't believe how long they were able to do that crap. They were so bad and so obviously fraudulent on how they were. I should say that. They were improperly doing things, and finally. They got taken down. So don't waste your time. And by the way, people call me, oh, credit repair. The first step to getting your credit fixed, get a debt. Not a debt. How are you fixing your credit? You know what I'm saying? You worried about your late payment? Now you're late again. You know what I'm saying? So you got to get out of debt.
Kevin, I love having you on our bankruptcy show. We're going to go to a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about tax relief with attorney Kevin Benjamin. We'll be right back.
And we are back with the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV with your hosts, Steve-O, Sophia, and their expert guests.
And we are back here. This is the Ask the Expert show. You know, if you have a bankruptcy problem, we're getting ready to talk about tax resolution now. Attorney Kevin Benjamin. Kevin, give everybody your phone number and your website who are listening on radio right now.
Sure. Kevin Benjamin, 312-853-3100. 312-853-3100. The website is benjaminlaw.com. And that's, you can email me, but it's on the website, all the information's there. Attorneys, plural, at benjaminlaw.com, 312-853-3100. Consultations are free. Bankruptcy, tax, for whatever you need. No problem at all.
Kevin, you love doing what you do, don't you?
I like helping people. I mean, there are people that sometimes are very difficult. Most people are very appreciative because they just want help. I'm saying, and there are some that actually are the reason that they changed the laws in 2005 to make it harder because they were abusing the system and nothing's their fault, and everyone's got a lawsuit and all this kind of stuff. Oftentimes,
but you know how stressful it is when people have bills that are mounting up. The IRS is after them, but when they come to you, you're like a breath of fresh air because now they don't have to talk to creditors. Mm-hmm. They don't have to talk to the IRS. That's what you do. You handle that for them.
Oh, now the IRS stuff I actually enjoy even more, to tell you the truth, because IRS, powerful entity, nice adversary, So, and people are scared. They should be. They just got $80 billion from the government, spread over several years to enforce it. The enforcement, all the COVID or pandemic things where they were backing off on collections over as of January 1, 2024. They are coming. They're sending the notices. They're sending the liens, garnishments, coming for your accounts, seizing assets. They want to get paid. However, the IRS will work something out. That's it's basically their mandate, right? So what most people don't understand is if you're not talking to them, they don't know. If you're not trying to work something out, they're just trying to find your assets and take it. So it's, like bankruptcy, you're getting someone out of debt, it's nice. But, getting someone himself a tax issue or government could take things and do something, it's very, very actually rewarding. And it's very much like being a lawyer on a case. I always get the examples like someone was calling today. It's like, first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get their files. It's like, you hire me on a litigation case, I'm defending you, it's discovery, right? Other side wants information from me. I want information, what's going on, what are the facts, right? And then how do you resolve the thing? So it's a little nicer than the regular law stuff because first of all, you don't have to be a lawyer. You have we have a firm called Noble Tax Relief, which only does tax resolution, right? But it's still me. I mean, I'm a tax lawyer, but you don't need to go to court. I am a member of the U.S. Tax Court. So if someone's got a tax issue and it goes through appeals and other stuff, that I could do it. I'm saying where a lot of people can't do it. But it's nicer because when I deal with the IRS, it's really more like, in court, you file an appearance, you go to court. Here, you file your power of attorney with the IRS. It's electronic or fax. So you send it in, and then you have hopefully maybe you're assigned a revenue officer or an agent, depending where you are in the IRS collection situation. I can get the discovery, electronically. A lot of it's by phone. So a lot of it is just easier to work with them. And quite frankly, it's like when you have a lawsuit, federal or civil, there's the civil code of procedure, the federal code of procedure. It's in the Internal Revenue Manual. That's the code. There's the bankruptcy code. Now there's, the means test for bankruptcy. There's IRS standards. For solving tax problems, they have IRS standards at different numbers. It's basically it's a cash flow situation. The IRS will accept what you are able to pay. Now, what does that mean, right?
Yes.
That doesn't mean, hey, Kevin, just tell them I can pay $5,000. I mean, it's not quite that simple. So you have a professional to simply show them what the collectability is. And that's under the Internal Revenue Manual, right, in the code. So you can have your assets. There's certain equity. There's certain amount of take-off exemptions. There's certain expenses we could, what's our cash flow? What's our income, our expenses, our assets, our liquidity, the chance of this? There's all kinds of exceptions. That's why you need a professional to do this analysis. That's how you negotiate with the IRS. It's just a cash flow situation. So once you agree on the number, it could be maybe it's offer and compromise, maybe it's an installment agreement, and there's different kinds. There's a partial pay installment agreement. There's different kinds of offer and compromises. There's a innocent spouse thing. There's a currently non-collectible. There's penalty abatement. So the first step is discovery. What's going on? I had a prospect call me today. They owe $24,000 from 2016. Well, first of all, maybe there's a statute of limitation issue. Maybe they don't have to pay, but they don't have the docs. I have to get them, right? They haven't filed returns for the last 6 years because they're afraid because they're going to owe money. First of all, you got to file them because we got to deal with the money. Second of all,
your clients usually honest with you, Kevin?
Well, they're honest with me when they don't. When they're saying they don't know. A lot of them are honest with saying they don't know. Where the letter is or what's going on or stuff like that. They're going to have to be honest with me because I can't help it. You know what I'm saying? And the IRS is not stupid, nor am I, because it's not a matter of like when someone called today, they're like, well, I'm talking to one of these national companies. No, you're talking to a guy on the phone who's a salesperson, telling you what they want to hear, right? They're not. How they know what you're doing, you don't even know yourself what the facts are, right? So like today, for example, the person with the 6 years, it's we got to file the IRS. If you're not compliant, they're not going to do a deal with you, right? Plus, you want to know what you owe because you want to put it behind you, right? And it doesn't matter what you owe. I had someone even a day or two ago. They said I owe $24,000, but maybe it's $76,000 because I was talking to somebody else, and they said the years I didn't file could be over $50,000 maybe. What does that mean? Right? So I said, well, first of all, don't worry about if it's 76 because the number that you can afford to pay that we got to show is the number. How much you owe, for example, if you qualify for an offer and compromise, which is a settlement for less than full amount, or the partial pay installment, which is less than amount, okay? You're only paying the less amount. So people get hung up on some calls today. Well, I heard this company, they settle for pennies on the dollar. That is a bunch of crap, sort of, right? What does that mean? The IRS will accept what you can afford to pay. So let's say it's $10,000, whether it's over time or one lump sum. If you owe 20, you settle for half. If you owe 8, you're paying the whole thing. If you owe 100,000, it's 10 cents on the dollar. You owe $1 million, it's 1 cent on the dollar. Okay, so but it's still 10 grand. My example, you know what I'm saying? So if you owe more money, it sounds great. Oh, I settle for less. But here's what it's not. It's not a magic. Hey, I'm an attorney, or I know how to talk to the IRS. They're afraid of me. I just call them and we settle for pennies on the dollar. Hey, the IRS, we owe $100,000. I'll give you $5. It's not an auction, right? They don't care. Show me your application. Show me your assets. Show me your analysis, and show me your ability to pay. And show me why, right? That's all I care. It's business, right? It's like a lawyer in court. You're doing it's facts, and you're doing the procedure. Same thing in the IRS. It's just business, right? There's no magic. You settle for pennies on the dollar. It's only if you owe more money, it's a better settlement. But the number that I settle for you is the number, right? Now, someone called me the other day. They had another company. They're like $340,000. They hired some company in a different state. I won't name them. They say, I want to know if it's a good deal. I said, well, how would I know if it's a good deal? I didn't do the deal, right? I don't know what you gave them, what the analysis was, if that installment agreement is good or not. I can't. I gotta. You want me to take over? I can take over, but I got to get the information, the facts myself, and look into it. Also, I was talking to this person. This could be discharged in bankruptcy. And he's like, whoa,
Right.
They didn't tell me that. Well, I looked the other company up, and they were a legitimate company. But I said, look at the contract you signed, or even their webpage. They're not lawyers. They don't do bankruptcy. Call a bankruptcy lawyer. I'm a bankruptcy lawyer too. You're calling him, telling you I can maybe discharge things. I told him why, but I got to get some facts, and I could restructure the whole thing. But the funny thing is, it's like you tell them people don't believe you. It's like it's too good to be true, but it's like it's not. It's my legal expertise is my background of a bankruptcy lawyer and a tax lawyer is very unique. Plus my federal trial bar and trial experience and being a member of the U.S. tax court, it's very unique to be able to solve IRS issues, IRS representation, tax controversy, tax resolution, tax relief. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. Most people don't need everything. You don't need the whole shebang. I was talking the one example again this morning. I was telling this person, like, oh man, I hope I don't have to go through appeals and tax court. So I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying is I'm able to take you from A to Z on the whole shebang if you need it. And most people don't need that. You know what I'm saying? But like, for example, getting back to our conversation, let's say we submit an offer in compromise or installment agreement, right? And the IRS turns it down. That's not the end of it. Because I want to know if I think I'm right, then we're fighting, right? So maybe I'm going to the revenue officer, maybe I'm going to the manager, maybe we're doing an appeal, right? And then you get different people and you fight. Maybe we're going to tax court, right? So, but oftentimes if it's turned down, there's a reason. Maybe there's a different budget. Then you fix that and then you resubmit and you get it done. So oftentimes you don't need to turn it down, you got to go appeal. Like it's not like a court hearing where the judge has ruled and now you're appealing. You know what I'm saying? It's just you're turned down, but they tell you why. And if the reason for why, you fix the why. Or if you don't agree with the reason, then you go through an appeal process. But you're not going to court in the appeal. You're doing more of a hearing. But that's why you have me. We're not afraid to. We're not trying to fight with the IRS. But I represent you. You're my client. I'm telling you what your options are: bankruptcy, offer in compromise, partial pay or full pay, different versions. Why we should submit this one? Why maybe they won't take that? That's my job. Then when I submit an offer, right? I'm saying this could work, or maybe I'm telling you, well, maybe this might work, but they may come back with this or this, and we got to be ready to, what's plan B or plan C. So maybe if it's turned down, it's not out of the blue because we said maybe they may say something like this. But I'm not going to just assume they're going to turn something down. If I have a better reason, I go for my client, try to get the better deal. Because if it can't get done, because maybe there was a little more of a gray area I was going for on something like that, at least we tried. You know what I'm saying? So we just resubmit and get it done.
Kevin, have you had to deal with any of the new agents yet?
Yeah, so there's different processes on the tax collection, right? So there's like ACS, the automatic collection system, and then there's a revenue officer that maybe is assigned. So if you're in ACS, for example, that's where a lot of the new phone people are, right? And ACS is basically you're calling them, you're on hold forever, and you're in a queue, right? And then they share notes, but you're talking to someone who's just looking at the online notes, whatever, and giving you an opinion, and who's also over, right? And they may say the wrong thing, and I know it's the wrong thing. Maybe it's like I tell they're new, right? So then it's a matter of calling back and get somebody else on the phone. It's sometimes it's that simple, even though getting them on the phone is not a simple process in and of itself. But sometimes it's just like, it's not one person. You're calling a queue. Now, if a revenue officer is assigned, then that's your contact, right? Now we're, it's like if we're litigating a case, opposing counsel, they have my information, I'm talking to them. So they're talking to me, I'm talking to them. And that's more of a direct dialogue. And as you're submitting things and talking numbers and looking at the cash flow analysis and the assets and exemptions, all that kind of stuff, you're talking to one person who's getting familiar with the case as we are. And that's good because sometimes you're also, resolving things that way. Now, the show is only 25 minutes, but even these installment agreements, there's different kinds. There's streamlined or non-streamlined, depending on how much you owe, how fast it could go, or what kind of documents you got to show or not. Because depending on different things, sometimes you can get a deal done pretty quick. That's a simpler case, a lower amount owed. And then depending on how much you owe, and depending on if an ACH or a revenue officer, like ACH may take, depending on, they may not have to verify everything, right? Revenue officer is going to want everything verified. It's a lot more work, right? Also, you may qualify for different programs, say an installment agreement, different kinds, but maybe you've had one before and didn't complete it. So now, even though on the streamline or non-streamline document-wise, maybe you didn't have to give, but now maybe you do because you didn't complete it. Or maybe you're in an area of business or employment that's a hot area, or maybe you're a high-profile person. So there's exceptions to everything too. But basically, that's why you have a professional, because what is the situation, right? What's happening? What kind of deal you're doing? What kind of documents do you need? That's all you got me.
Kevin, give everybody your phone number and your website address.
BenjaminLaw.com. I also have a company called Noble Tax Relief, NobleTaxRelief.com, which is more just the IRS stuff. If you want to look at that website and look at all the different, more detailed stuff, because that's all that website has. But BenjaminLaw.com or NobleTaxRelief.com, 312-853-3100, 312-853-3100. Attorneys at BenjaminLaw.com. And I'm happy to schedule a free consultation with you. You can even go to my scheduling, if you're familiar with Calendly, right? Calendly.com/Kevin Benjamin. You just go online and block out a time with me and call you.
All I can say is I feel sorry for the revenue officer who's got to go up against you. Kevin, you are the best. Kevin will be back again with us next month talking bankruptcy and tax relief. Kevin, thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
That's attorney Kevin Benjamin. What a great attorney. If you have a federal tax problem, he's the one to contact. We'll be back with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.